Welcome back. This is a Wire to Wire Sports Podcast special edition with Smoking Jeremy B. Jeremy, this was this is impromptu, and I really wanted to get out here and just talk about the NFL draft. Talk with somebody I obviously can debate sports with. Very intelligent, knows the Detroit Lions. But if you don't mind, can you just throw your socials out there for anybody that might be listening,
Sure.
where they can find you at first?
You can find me at Smoking Jeremy B on Twitter. You can find me on Kneecap Biting with Smoking Jeremy B on YouTube. You can also find me at Motor City Kneecap Biters on Facebook. You can find me on the Sports Empire Network as part of their writing crew. You can find me on the SouthFloridaTribune.com. I mean, I'm everywhere where sports is talked about and where the Lions are talked about.
Well, you work extremely hard, and it's great to get you on this morning to talk some NFL draft, and if we have some questions, we'll get into some NBA playoffs also. But I kind of want to get back to what we were talking about. If you were listening to the live video before, and we were talking about the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Carter. Anthony, I will I'll have Jeremy respond to that again, and I don't agree with the Lions drafting Gibbs so high either, but if he's and I'll say this before and I'll say this again, if he's a Detroit Lions guy and he's going to give you the production that Jamal Williams gave you last year,
Or better.
then I understand it. And I who am I to argue with that franchise and what they've been doing over the last few years? Everything they've done is turned to gold recently. Jamison Williams is obviously a stud wide receiver. I think Aiden Hutchinson arguably was is obviously a top 5 guy that went in last year's draft. Could be one of the top. I said that the Jaguars should take him at 1. I thought he would be a leader on that defense. And, Aiden Hutchinson had a much better rookie year than Travon Walker. Nothing against Travon Walker. I seen
Great talent, but he was drafted on upside.
Correct. And then taking it another step forward, I love the Jack Campbell pick. The Detroit Lions struggled mainly with stopping the run, and Jack Campbell will fix that. He'll fix that in the worst way. I mean, you have Aiden Hutchinson coming around the edge, but Jack Campbell is an attacking style, a third down and long guy. He's going to get after the quarterback. I think he's a 3-down linebacker. And if you wanted my honest critique on Jack Campbell, I think he's Luke Kuechly like Luke Kuechly light, Lite.
Luke Kuechly-esque, as some people like to say. That's what it means, that he's similar but not the same.
Yeah, and I think
just like Jahmyr Gibbs, he's more of an Alvin Kamara type of back.
Yeah.
And I get that, because that's what when we put Swift on the trade block 2 weeks ago, that's what we were planning on getting rid of. It was an Alvin Kamara light. When I say light, because he can't stay on the field. Kamara plays way more games than what Swift does.
100%. And, we'll talk about that a little bit more, but I want to get back into the Jalen Carter conversation. Now, Jeremy, you said that, and here's the one thing I will say to knock on Jalen Carter. If he wasn't drafted to the right situation, he's drafted to like an Urban Meyer
yeah. If he was drafted, let's say he went to the Texans.
Yeah.
Let's say he went
DeMeco, I believe in DeMeco.
I believe in DeMeco, but he's still a rookie head coach. You know what I'm saying? He hasn't worked in that situation with that type of head case yet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, 100%.
You got to get him around the right people. And our biggest problem, when everybody's talking about this draft and how we didn't address it, you have to look at it was a tale of 2 teams last year for Detroit defensively. We were historically bad through the first 7 games.
Yeah.
And we played at a top 15 level the last 10 because we went 8-2.
Yeah, no.
But it was so bad in the first 7, it couldn't raise those defensive stats at the end of the season. It was kind of like the same thing happened, even though it wasn't a passing game coordinator on defense change, back in Patricia's first year. If you look at how bad that team started at the beginning of the year when they let the Jets go 45 points on them and everything else, once they added Snacks to the middle of that line, all of a sudden, by the end of the year, they were a top 15 defense.
Listen, I'm
And
a fan.
so that's why I understood why we didn't go as much defense first.
I'm a fan of what the Detroit Lions did in the draft as a whole. I'm a fan of it. Like Malcolm Rodrigo is going to go right to that weak outside linebacker spot. Jack Campbell is going to plug right into your middle linebacker and start opening day. And I think that I really believe that, you guys added a ton. It looks like they have, like, just currently on their draft chart, and we'll find this out more, but they have Brian Branch slotted to play with Tracy Walker and C.J. Gardner-Johnson to start your strong safety. I think they'll end up moving Gardner Johnson into the slot, and Brian Branch will end up starting at your strong safety position. Just my personal opinion.
Yeah, because GJ has actually played slot in the NFL. So he has more experience, whereas Branch has been for the past 2 years predominantly a strong safety. We got another guy that can roam center field back there. Here's what I see. Tracy Walker looks like he's fifth in coverage skills on this safety room.
Yeah.
But he's third in tackling. So you can't not leave him out there. He's one of the better tacklers. Kirby Joseph is like first or second in coverage skills, but he's fourth in tackling. So that's why you're going to see a lot of flip-flopping around. I think they're going to move people around the entire time.
I'm not, like I said, a lot of people that gave Detroit hell for day one kind of walked those comments back after day 2 and day 3.
Yeah.
Specifically because they got 2 great values in Brian Branch and Hendon Hooker. Like I said, if they drafted Hendon Hooker at 12, it would have been a total change. Number one, it would have been bad for the Detroit Lions because they would have had the expectation that he needs to start and Jared Goff's not the starter.
Right.
But the value pick, no one would have argued with. Because like, Hendon Hooker is a value quarterback, that position of value. If they drafted Brian Branch 18 over Jack Campbell, no one would have had an issue. No one would have batted an eye. Brian Branch was looked at as an 18 to 24 talent. I had him 12 on my board because I think he's the best safety in the entire draft. I loved what he did in Alabama. He's very instinctual, very smart. The only thing he lacks is athleticism. He's not the most athletic safety in the board, but that's okay. That's why you become a safety. They look at some of these top corners that have the best instincts that lack athleticism, and they move them right into the safety position. Brian Branch is that. He's a nickel guy that is smart and can read the field. Guys, I hate to say it, but I think Brian Branch is a better version of what you'll find out of C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And we just seen him in Philadelphia. You're talking about a guy that led the Eagles last year in interception. He was awesome for us. We wanted him back in the worst way. He's the one guy I didn't want to leave the room. But I think that Brian Branch turns into be a very good player for Detroit. But I want to get back to what we were talking about with Jalen Carter. Jeremy, let me ask your opinion. And I really just want to know, do you think we're talking about where he fit and if he got drafted by a team like Houston, and we kind of got off the rails a little bit. I think that him getting drafted by Houston with DeMeco Ryans would have been okay because of DeMeco. But if he went to a poor organization that just makes mistakes over and over again, let's just say Cleveland. Cottrell might hate me for that, but they make a ton of mistakes.
They do.
I don't think Jalen Carter has a good a career as he could have had. You know who my NFL comp for Jalen Carter is? It sounds absolutely crazy because I'm an Eagles fan, but I promise you, I've really did my research on him. He's a Fletcher Cox in his prime.
Right.
God.
That's a good analogy. Yeah, and Thule, the guy we talked about that went where he did for the Chargers.
Yeah.
If you want to look at his comp, it's kind of the same as the Preacher.
Yeah.
A bigger D end, fast, can get off the edge, can still bull rush because he's strong enough. He's that type of D end. I'm not saying he is that guy. He's that type. There's a big difference, guys.
So we talked about Jalen Carter. Let's talk about Nolan Smith, because a lot of Eagles fans would have been fine with getting Nolan Smith at 10. If Jalen Carter was off the board, the Eagles took Nolan Smith at 10. No one has an issue there. You're talking about a DN, outside linebacker, edge rusher that ran a 4.3 40.
4.39.
I will say this. 4.3 is 4.3.
Yeah, I know.
4.39 or 4.32, it's 4.3.
Yeah, I know.
I will say this. The number of players in the NFL that are linebackers, outside linebackers / edge rushers that are under 240 pounds that have made it. There's a list of one.
Mm-hmm.
Name's Hassan Reddick.
Yep, and the one that didn't make it started as a DN, moved to outside linebacker back in the day for the San Francisco 49ers was Manny Lawson.
Yeah, Manny Lawson.
I mean, that guy was fast as lightning, but he couldn't blow through anybody. He couldn't get the pressures that you expected, especially with that good D-line.
I actually think that they used Nolan Smith in an exact same role that they used Hassan Reddick in.
Yeah, outside misguided missile.
I think that they have to move. I think the Philadelphia Eagles have to move to a 3-4 this offseason.
Either 3-4 or go to a modified 4-3 under or something and constantly shift back and forth from the strong and weak side. You got to do something.
Yeah, no, I don't think they can be a 4-3. I really don't, because as a 4-3, you're expecting Nolan Smith and you're expecting Hassan Reddick to be your ends, and they can't be that. They're not big enough to be that.
Right.
But with a 4-3, you can leave them, or 3-4, you can leave them on the field, pass downs and rush downs, and they can get after the quarterback.
And the only other option is a run more 5-2.
100% a 5-2, because the way they're lined up, Jordan Davis is the perfect nose tackle in a 3-4. Like he's just he's huge. Then you have Jalen Carter and Fletcher Cox
at the end,
on the end, and then you're running Nolan Smith and Hassan Reddick on your corners. Nakobe Dean is going to be your middle, and he plays very well off of Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, as you've seen at Georgia. I'm really happy what the Eagles did. The one thing I really want them to do is to still find a way to sign a safety before the season starts. I don't think, and just personal opinion, I don't think that that Sidney Brown will be ready to start the season. And I don't believe in Terrell Edmonds as much as other people do. You know, the Eagles got Terrell Edmonds, and they're going, well, PFF rated him as the 4th best safety. I don't care. My eyes rated him as the 14th best safety, like 28th best safety. I didn't have him anywhere near my top 10.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I was shocked. Like I said, you mentioned the Eagles needing safety help too, and I forgot about it. I mean, I loved everything they did in the draft but the safety room. Yeah. So you had the Eagles, Seahawks, and Packers that passed on them, and a top 5 safety went undrafted. That means with what you guys took in the first 2 rounds, you guys skipped over Brandon Joseph for 5 rounds.
Yeah, no.
And
trust me, it's not all perfect.
But you still had one of the best drafts. You and the Texans. That's 1 and 2. You can flip-flop them either way you want. In my opinion. I could be wrong, but I think they had one of the best drafts, and you guys had one of the best drafts.
Who do you think had the worst draft out of everybody?
Yeah, I guess because of the double dip at tight end and everything else, I want to say the Packers. Packers and Browns. Completely. It was bad. It was bad.
I completely agree with you. I thought their first pick should have almost definitely been Dalton Kincaid, the tight end, to give Jordan Love some help, a security blanket.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about the best receiver at the tight end position. And then they had the opportunity in the 2nd round to get Darnell Washington, and they passed on him.
You want my bottom up? I think it's Packers, Cleveland, and a tie for the bottom.
Well, Cleveland didn't have a 1st-round draft pick.
Yeah, I know, but if you look at what they drafted later, it wasn't that great either. They reached on quite a few as well.
I got news for you. I think the 49ers did it.
When you draft, and 49ers are right there. That was my next one. And as much as I hate to say it, the Cowboys.
Well, the Cowboys drafted for depth. I can't tell you what the Cowboys draft pick is going to be like. Draft is going to be like until I really, the nice way to put it is until I'm 100% sure what those guys turn into. I can't tell you about the Cowboys draft, but what I can tell you is there's a lot of teams like that. Anytime you draft a kicker in the 3rd round, I need you to I need to understand why.
I need an explanation.
Yeah. I don't.
That's a 99th pick overall. Wow, Jake Moody. I mean, granted, he's a great kicker in college. He was very clutch for Michigan, but I saw him as a 6th or 7th rounder myself, or UDFA.
The Commanders also had a terrible draft.
Yeah, yeah, that's my 5 right there. You just named them all. That's my bottom 5.
And, to take Jaden Reed from Michigan State for the Packers while Jalen Hyatt was still on the board, it's got to be a kick in the face. Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't know how to explain it because Jaden Reed is like a poor man's Romeo Dobbs.
Derek Dempsey says the Packers had the worst draft. I can't disagree with them.
Yeah, right. It's them, the Browns, 49ers, all of that. And like you said, you really can't judge it that bad for the Cowboys. It's just where they pick some of their players. It was like real head scratchers. But like you said, with the Lions, if you flip-flopped it and made the 2nd and 3rd round their first picks,
Yep.
those two, Branch and Hendon Hooker, if you'd have flipped those around and Hooker was at 12 or 18 and Branch was at 10 or 18 or 12 or 18, no one would be bitching.
I completely agree with you, man. I think that
and Next Gen Stats completely agree with that. If you look at it with the way the grades went, those 5 picks alone were all over 80s in an overall score for Next Gen Stats. But it was 82, 82, 82, 84, then our other pick, and then Hendon Hooker at an 87. So if you flip that completely around, it looks like a fantastic draft.
I love Hendon Hooker. I don't understand, and maybe people can help me understand why Hendon Hooker was so undervalued in this moot room. I just need to understand it.
I don't understand it either because he was playing at a head and shoulders level, Heisman level above every quarterback in college before he got hurt.
Completely agree. I also want to talk about the Jets. They were noticeably ranked as one of the worst draft. Will McDonald going in the first round was a little high. Joe Tippmann.
Joe Tippmann was a great pick in the 2nd round.
I don't hate that. Carter Warren in the 3rd round.
That was a reach.
And then Israel. A lot of people like this kid, Israel. I can't pronounce his last name.
Abanikanda.
Yeah, I can't. A lot of people like him as a running back, but you already have Breece Hall. You already have Michael Carter. I don't understand.
The Will McDonald pick was actually a reactionary pick because they were going to take Jahmyr Gibbs there. That's what that is actually what that GM texted to Brad Holmes.
That's not what I heard.
That is exactly what I heard. And that's what Brad Holmes was talking about in an interview.
Well, it's funny you say that. I heard, hold on, let me get the picks up because I looked at this already. Whoever the New England Patriots traded with, they traded down from 15 or 14. They were right ahead. I heard they were going to take Broderick Jones out of Georgia, and they panic picked because the Patriots traded back from 14 to 17 to take. I was almost sure
Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah,
great.
They wanted Christian Gonzalez, and they knew the Jets weren't going to take him because of their cornerback room, the way it was set up. So I think that they traded that pick to basically screw the Jets. I don't think the Jets were taking a running back there with Breece Hall in their backfield. Breece Hall, Michael Carter. I don't think Jahmyr Gibbs was that guy. I think that your GM let that information out because a lot of people were talking about that
how bad it was a pick. Yeah, I know.
I think that he's just kind of playing defensive. I seen that interview where he said that we got so many texts saying that they wouldn't have made it past 15.
Right.
And I get how you can read into that, but I don't think a team that has Breece Hall, who had such a promising start to his year and was just drafted in the 2nd round last year, would be drafting Jahmyr Gibbs in the 1st round.
I understand it, but I understand what you're saying, but that's what that was said. So that's all I'm getting at.
One of the most puzzling drafts of the entire draft to me was who I have rated as my number RB2. I want to have him as RB1, but I don't think I have the balls to put him ahead of Bijan. Was Zach Charbonnet.
Yeah.
He went to Seattle when they have Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, I mean that's a Kenneth Walker clone.
I
It's a
love it.
Kenneth Walker clone. I mean, and Kenneth Walker, did he get hurt last year? I don't think he
No, he
did.
played great.
Yeah, he played
He
great.
got hurt the last game of the season, but
Yeah, but
I don't really think that was
it wasn't anything major.
no. I think Emmanuel Forbes got overdrafted by Washington.
Emmanuel Forbes, while a great player, he has to run around in a thunderstorm to get wet at 170 pounds.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know how else to say it.
Zay Flowers, I also thought was a terrible draft pick. I don't think he's a great route runner. I think he's unpolished out of Boston College. I think that
he's a fly route guy. Is what he'll be in the NFL.
Correct, and it's constantly. That's the nice way to put it. It's constantly just like the Ravens to draft another wide receiver in the first round. They've done it 3 out of the last 5 drafts. Rashad Bateman, Hollywood Brown, and now this.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Ravens move because
didn't they sign OBJ and AB this year?
The AB's not signed.
Oh, okay.
That was just AB being AB.
Oh,
but I thought Jordan Addison was a lot more polished, and if you were going to take a wide receiver there, I think the Minnesota Vikings were having.
Was JSN gone then?
No, yeah, Jackson Smith-Njigba was first receiver off the board.
Okay,
he went 21, but I think that Jordan Addison going 24 was a very similar reaction the Minnesota Vikings had to getting Justin Jefferson at 22. The Eagles took Rager, the Ravens took Flowers, and then they were sitting on the clock like, wait, Jordan Addison's really going to fall into our lap. Eagles took Jalen Rager. Wait, Justin Jefferson's really going to fall into our lap.
Right.
And by the way, I want to answer Derek Dempsey's question. He said, what was the biggest steal in the second or third round? Brian Branch.
Brian Branch and Hendon Hooker. Those were the 2 biggest steals I saw. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Depends on what Hendon Hooker turns into. I can never say a quarterback's going to be a steal until I see them play. I can only say they're going to be a bust when I see them play.
Right.
But I think there was a lot. Joey Porter Jr. going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's a steal.
That's a steal.
Yeah. Michael Mayer going to Las Vegas Raiders. That's a steal.
Right.
Michael Mayer reminds me of baby Gronk. I'll tell you who I don't think is a steal, though. I really am not a fan of Luke Musgrave, tight end from Oregon State that went to the Packers.
No.
Not a fan at all. Cam Smith going to the Dolphins makes sense. I think that's a steal with the 20th pick in the second round.
I kind of wanted him at 34. I wanted Cam Smith there because that's about where he fell. It was in that 30s range and big boards, depending on who's you looked at. I wanted Cam Smith for Detroit because if you got Cam Smith and Cam Sutton, you have a nickname for the secondary there. With us being the Motor City, it's dual overhead cams.
I like it. Bruce Sanders going to Denver in the third round.
One of the worst coverage linebackers. And that's something that the Denver Broncos struggled with, was covering tight ends and running backs out of the backfield and swing passes and slants. So to take Drew Sanders there didn't make a lot of sense. They'd have been better off to reach on Dorian Williams, who is like the second best coverage linebacker. The best coverage linebacker was Jack Campbell. But the absolute worst coverage linebacker in the draft actually went in the 5th round, Henry TuoTo.
Oh, I forgot one. This is 100% one of the best draft picks of the whole draft. The Cincinnati Bengals, who I thought were going to take a safety earlier I thought they would end up taking Brian Branch in the first round. Mm-hmm. Ended up with Jordan Battle, 3-year starter at Alabama.
5th or 6th round, wasn't it?
No, the end of the third. It was the
third. That was in the third?
Pick.
Okay.
You can count that as a 4th round pick. The 32nd pick in the 3rd round is, I think it was a comp pick that they got in the 3rd round comp. So I think that was a really good pick too.
Yeah.
I love Devin Archain on Miami. Derek Dempsey said, I also love Devin Archain to the Fins. Fastest team in the NFL. They're building a track team. Devin Archain was listed as my RB1 when I was doing my value rankings. I thought he would be one of the best value picks. Excuse me. One of the best value picks in the whole entire draft. The guy's a track star. He ran a 4.32 at the running back position. at his absolute floor, he's Michael Bennett. And Michael Bennett from the Minnesota Vikings, not Michael Bennett, the DN.
Right.
At his absolute ceiling, he's CJ Johnson, CJ2K. So I think that you could have got Chris Johnson in the third round with Devin Archain from Texas A&M. He's incredible. That's a great value pick. I'm not as high on Bijan as most people are, and if I'm Atlanta Falcons, Tyler Algier and Cordell Patterson did not do a bad job in the backfield last year for me. Bijan Robinson's just not the weapon I would go with. The Atlanta Falcons leave this draft without getting a quarterback?
Without getting a quarterback, without really shoring up the O-line too much. They also didn't add a lot in wide receiver depth. You say what you want. They needed wide receivers bad. I was like, man, at 8, they should go Jackson Smith-Njigba or O-line. But when Arizona traded up and took their O-line guy, they kind of took Bijan in a panic move.
I don't think they took Bijan in a panic move. I think they were taking him the whole way. If I'm being honest with you, he was mocked there the last few days, and the guy that had
look at that!
I'm losing my mind here. Daniel Jeremiah, who had the Texans moving up from 13 to 3 in his final mock draft, actually had Bijan going there, which I thought was great. The Atlanta Falcons got Bijan Robinson. They got Matthew Bergeron, who will definitely start for them. Zach Harrison is an edge rusher, not bad from Ohio State. Clark Phillips, corner.
That was good value where they got him. He was one of the better corners.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I got. I don't count 7th round draft picks. I don't count 7th round draft picks. Most of them don't make the team. So, all right. So, let's put up Brett's comment. Running back was definitely a reach. You have a 1,000-yard rusher on a rookie contract already. If they wanted another back, I would have picked one in the later rounds. I completely agree with you. I'm actually glad that they took Bijan, because I think that Atlanta was a spot that Jalen Carter could have went and started right away and been a force on. Georgia, Atlanta, I think that would have been that was one of the places I was afraid that would take him there. Any other comments on teams that did well, teams that did poor, that aren't the Lions, that aren't the Eagles? Because I do have one team I think that absolutely stole the draft that wasn't the Philadelphia Eagles or the Houston Texans, and I want to see if you bring them up first.
I think the Rams had a sneaky good draft for not having any first or second round picks.
The Rams, a.k.a. F them picks.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they did really good with what they had available. And they grabbed another Georgia quarterback to sit behind Stafford, who might end up playing by the 5th game when Stafford gets a career-ending injury.
I think the team that had the best draft in the league that we haven't mentioned right now is the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, they had a good draft.
Broderick Jones is going to walk in and be your starting tackle tomorrow. Joey Porter is going to walk in and be a starting cornerback tomorrow. Keanu Benton is going to walk in and be your starting D tackle tomorrow. Darnell Washington has the highest upside out of any tight end in this draft. I think he's the 3rd best tight end in this draft, and he's going to give your young quarterback a huge target to throw to tomorrow. Nick Herbig will 100% be a starting linebacker in this league. That's 5 players that they're going to have that they drafted that will end up starting for them. Derek Dempsey said the Colts. Let's talk about that for a minute. I don't think the Colts. See, I examined the Colts draft, and they got an A+ from Sporting News. And I think that the part that throws me off the most is they drafted Anthony Richardson at 4.
I'm going to be right back. I have to use the.
No, understood. I'm going to talk about the Colts draft picks as a whole, Derek. Julius Brents is not a bad corner, decent pick. Josh Downs, I think, was a product of the system. Blake Freeland, not a bad offensive tackle. They had a lot of picks. I don't necessarily think this is a C draft for me. I'm not a huge fan of it as a whole. Decent value from where they were drafted, but I'm not a fan of the draft as a whole. And I think the Anthony Richardson draft pick really stands out to me. The 49ers taking a kicker in the third round was absolutely bizarre. I completely agree with you. And to kind of touch on what Jeremy was talking about with the Rams, I really don't like the Stetson Bennett pick. Not a fan of it. He won't start for you. He's not a starting level NFL quarterback, so I don't like it at all. The Bengals took Miles Murphy, who I think is the not so special edge rusher out of Clemson. DJ Turner, who I love. Jordan Battle, who I love. What's up? Welcome back, Jeremy.
Yeah, feel better.
We're just talking about different teams that had different drafts or bad drafts.
Indianapolis Colts, I thought they had a good draft outside of the first round.
I don't know, man. I looked at their draft as a whole, and they took value players, but I don't necessarily think there's anything special about any of them.
Right. I mean, Miles Murphy, I felt like that was a reach. I don't think he's as good as everybody made him out to be. Brian Bresee for the Saints, I have them as a middle team because Brian Bresee, I think, was one of the worst defensive tackles that was rated too high.
I think that the Bengals did a good job outside of Miles Murphy. I think they took Miles Murphy. I don't want to say a panic pick, but it was like one of those picks that he shouldn't still be here, so we're going to take him.
Right. There was a run.
Turner out of Michigan is a great pick. I think Jordan Battle out of Alabama is a good pick. I think Charlie Jones is a good depth pick to replace T. Higgins because they're not going to be able to re-sign him. I don't know. I just, as a whole, and another team I think that did well outside of their first round pick was the Ravens. They drafted Zay Flower in the first round. But I like the Trenton Simpson pick. Tavarius Robinson was a good pick. But I don't think the Ravens did a poor job outside the first round. I like what the Titans did outside. I'm not a Will Levis guy, but if Will Levis turns out to be what they think he could be, well, the Titans didn't have a bad draft.
No, Titans had a decent draft too. I mean, there was a lot of really good middle of the road drafts. There was a few horrible ones and a few great ones. And in the middle of the draft, the middle teams of the draft, I'm not saying the Lions had a top 5 draft. I'm saying they had maybe a top 10.
Okay.
That's where I have them at.
I have them top 10 also.
Yeah, I don't think
a lot of players I really like. I'll tell you what though, I think the team that had the worst draft to me, and I keep going back to this, is the 49ers. I really believe that.
49ers, Packers, Cleveland. In that order.
I gave the Buffalo Bills a C. I think anytime you add Dalton Kincaid to Josh Allen, I don't necessarily believe that. Osiris Torrance is going to be a starting guard tomorrow.
Yes.
So you have 2 impact players in the draft, and Dorian Williams will definitely play for them.
Yeah, I mean, they had a big loss at linebacker. He's an instant plug-in. He's fast. He's great in coverage. He can do sideline to sideline. He lacks a little in the run defense part of it, but the rest of it's great.
I think the Jaguars had a bad draft also.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't great. That's for sure.
Anton Harrison, they had to get him in the first round as far as offensive lineman to protect Trevor Lawrence. Brenton Strange was a strange pick. Tank Bigsby, when you already have Travis Etienne, is a strange pick. Ventrell Miller, I don't know where he plays on your team. I don't know. I think Yasir Abdullah was their best pick in the draft, and that was their 5th rounder.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's hard to argue with that because you're right. Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, there's quite a few teams that had like the bottom half of the draft, and there's quite a few teams that had the upper half of the draft. It's, it goes either way. But in all actuality, these draft grades, they really don't matter till we see the play on the field.
Agreed.
Because you really can't judge a draft till 3 years down the road.
Agreed. But it's just opinions. That's why we're
right. You're right. Oh, absolutely. I mean, the reason why we do draft grades is because NFL Network, ESPN, and every other media outlet in the world does draft grades. And we're basing it off of the player's potential and how good they did in college. But not always does a great combine equal a great player in the NFL, nor does a great game film equal a great player in the NFL. Because some players just don't have it up here. But I do like who we got. And I in our UDFA class, I actually almost like it better than the draft class.
I can't say that. I like everything else you said there until that.
But,
I will ask you this question before. Have you been keeping up with the NBA playoffs at all?
Very little. I've been focusing on this for so long, and I had a few health issues and stuff like that, so I haven't been able to pay attention a lot to the NBA.
Back on screen. I hope that your health issues are
being
taken care of.
Yeah, I mean, I got really sick for a little bit, and I had some other issues that I don't want to get into.
Oh, understood. Hey,
But,
listen, I'm just happy to see you back on screen talking football.
yeah.
The only reason I wanted to bring up the NBA is we're in the midst of the playoffs, and in just 30 minutes, the New York Knicks are going to take on the Miami Heat in the second round.
And they're going to have a rough time. They're missing Randall.
I know, but I still think I mean this when I say this, and this sounds really bad, but it's the truth. I think the Miami Heat have the worst roster that's in the playoffs. Even though they beat Milwaukee,
they just have one of the best gamers on their team. I mean, the best clutch guy.
Yeah, and I get that, but if you look at the depth of the New York Knicks roster, I still think they win the game today, even without Julius Randle, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson. I love what that Emmanuel Quickly. I love what that team has done this year. They're very well coached. I'm a fan of the New York Knicks, man. I hate saying that, man. I hate being a Sixers fan, saying I like something a New York basketball team's doing. But they got the Villanova boys with Brunson and Hart, and they're taking on Miami shortly. Game 7 tonight, Sacramento versus Golden State. Sacramento's a 1-point favorite in that game, and a lot of people the scales are tipping. A lot of people are thinking that Sacramento is going to pull off this upset and knock off the defending champions, a team that everyone looked at as a layup coming into the playoffs. The Sacramento Kings, they blew out Golden State in Golden State in Game 6.
Yeah, and now they're at home and going to have that frenzied crowd.
What's it? What is it? They have a saying, light the beam.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I want Golden State to win just because I'm a hater and I want the Lakers to get knocked out of the playoffs, and I can't stand them. I think a team that can shoot threes is going to send the Lakers home. I think Lakers fans just drive me up a wall. I almost hate them as much
because Lakers struggle defending the perimeter so bad.
And you know, the problem was, the truth is Memphis shot so bad, and Dillon Brooks made the biggest ass of himself. I've never seen a guy ruin his career in one playoff series.
It was great.
76ers are going to play the Boston Celtics. No, it doesn't look like Joel Embiid is going to play game 1. What else is new for Philadelphia? I look at this every year, and it's every year a second round exit. Every year they run into a Embiid injury, whether it be his face when Siakam hit him in the face, whether it be his meniscus, whether it be whatever. I'm just tired of the Embiid injury news. It's every year in the playoffs. He wins the MVP, and then all of a sudden he has an injury. I remember his tummy was hurt versus Toronto the year the Raptors won in 7 with that Kawhi walk-off. When the Sixers had the ability to take over the series, go up 3-1, winning game 4 in Philadelphia. I was so baffled. But it is what it is, man. It is what it is. Another year of the Sixers letting me down. And then you have the Lakers. The Lakers, they're going to play. I forgot the Phoenix Suns versus the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets looked great last night.
Yep. And I said the Nuggets would win, and they did.
I think the Phoenix Suns still win the series, though. I believe that I'll take star players over role players. And I believe that Phoenix has the star players. And I think that they'll steal game 2 and then win game 3 in Phoenix and take control of the series. I don't think Embiid's playing the whole series, Anthony. I really don't. I think that he might play game 3 in Philadelphia after being down 0-2 and try to be the Dark Knight and save their season.
Mm-hmm. But I kind of agree. He's going to miss 2 to 3 games.
It's just every year with him, man. Any final comments, questions before we wrap up? I just wanted to hop on it live and talk about the draft. Anything, Jeremy?
No, it was a great weekend. I think a lot of teams did great and a lot of teams did bad. I mean, there is no in between. There was very few mediocre drafts, if you actually think about it. Because once you get into bad drafts, anything lower than a C grade is a bad draft.
I agree, 100%.
And I think a very few teams had an A grade.
Commanders, Packers,
Chargers,
49ers, Jaguars. I think they're the worst.
They're the C minus D pluses. Yeah. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, no, 100%.
Because I don't give Fs until after I see players play. I just think
an F, right? I want to read you an F grade.
Okay.
I want to read you this draft. 2018 Eagles draft I got to read it to you as a whole because it's one of the worst drafts you'll ever hear in your entire life.
Oh, God.
Ever. Sorry, 2017. 2018 was actually not bad.
Oh, 2017 when you drafted Wentz?
I got you. No, 2018 we drafted one.
Oh, okay.
All right, here's this draft. Ready? I want to read it to you as a whole. Now, this is 6 years later at this point.
Right.
Derek Barnett.
Ouch.
Sidney Jones. Rasul Douglas.
Who?
Mac Hollins. The XFL's own Donnell Pumphrey. Shelton Gibson. Nathan Gary.
That's it?
That's it.
Oh, yeah. None of them are in the league now, right? Maybe Sidney Jones as a depth piece on somebody's practice squad.
Sidney Jones, I think, was on Seattle's roster 2 years ago. I don't know where he's at now. Where's Sidney Jones at? Let's see. Sid the Kid. You want to talk about a guy who's going to get drafted? He's in the Bengals roster currently. Yeah, that's an F draft.
No, well, we've had quite a few of those when you look at them later for Detroit over the past 20 years.
Yeah, but you guys have. I'll say this, that I want all Lions fans that are listening to really be proud. You Detroit guys, you're very pounding your chest. We love our team, and outside of Detroit, you normally get a lot of people are like, it's the Lions, they suck, it's whatever. Outside of Detroit, from my circles to yours, I will tell you, everybody that's outside of Detroit that watches football and understands it respects and loves what the Detroit Lions are doing as a whole. Resurgence of Jared Goff, the Amon-Ra St. Brown, the way they chose to play Jamal Williams over DeAndre Swift last year because he was the grit and grind guy on the team. The draft picks that they've had over the last few years with Aiden Hutchinson,
Penei
Sewell, another great one, Jamison Williams. It's been just time and time again. You guys have made the right decision. You got 7 former players on your coaching staff. It's like one of those things, and a lot of former Eagles. Deuce Staley, who's not there anymore. He's in Carolina. Hank Fraley. Hank Fraley was a former Eagles center. A lot of people don't know that.
I do.
I know you do, but like it's awesome to watch. Watching them in Hard Knocks last year was one of the more fun Hard Knocks I've ever watched. So, from Philadelphia to Detroit, you have a fan, a guy that roots for Detroit in that division. I do root for Justin Fields, though. So Chicago and Detroit, you'll never catch me rooting for the Packers or Vikings. I think both those teams can. I'm a mixture between an Eagles Bears and an Eagles Lions guy. If I'm looking at that division, my second favorite team in football right now is the Jaguars. I pick teams based off of Philadelphia roots and
right.
You in Jacksonville you have Doug Peterson, and I've always been a Trevor Lawrence guy. So. All right, well, we're going to wrap it up. I appreciate you anybody in the comments that joined us. Jeremy, I appreciate you hopping on with me.
It was great. I love doing this.
Well, listen, we're gonna start doing them a couple more Sundays. Any Sunday it rains and I have no softball, I'm going to go live. So appreciate everybody tuning in, and we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you so much, and have a phenomenal day.